Welcome to the bright side of the moon, a journey of magic and wonder, and most of all, beauty.
Chapter 8 Summer in Lindos, 1973. Every morning I awake with such inspiration to continue writing my memoirs. My heart is opening as the moments of beauty and love return to me. I am so grateful to my life. On this morning I was pondering the time we, most of the band, all went to Lindos, Rhodos, Greece. David rented a pea green E-Type and we set off from London, driving across Europe. We stopped to visit his parents first, who were having their summer holiday in Romanchuel, a French village just outside of Saint-Tropez. I still remember the sounds of the swallows as they flew in between the stone buildings above me. They never land on the ground, David told me. We slept on a very narrow daybed in each other's arms in their living room. I had to dry my hair in the last of the winds of the Mistral from the balcony. Its wind blew away the clouds and dust brought from England. As I sat on the porch, the day held in stillness by the blazing sun upon the countryside, forcing me to close my eyes from its brightness. In that moment, the sounds of civilization were far away, melting into the distance, as the song of the cicadas called forth the evening, purging all the inner tensions, leaving room for beauty and peace to return. The day became the night, allowing Provence to fulfill one's calling to dream within the fragrance of lavender. We traveled towards our destination through the mountains of Switzerland. The car was a convertible, and with the wind in our hair, we laughed in the sunshine as we drove along. I loved looking at David, his hair, his eyes. Was this really happening? It was as though we had been in love before, through lifetimes of togetherness. The landscape was so majestic, it took my breath away. We stopped for little bites of cheese and bread and a glass of wine along the way. I'd never had such wonderful wine in my life as I did on this journey. We drove into Brindisi, Italy, where we took a boat to Patras, Greece. I felt a little seasick in our room below from the fumes and the loud churning sound of the engine. Consequently, I had to spend most of my journey up on the deck. We left the car in Patras and flew to Rhodes. We arrived in the early evening. The sun was setting as we walked down the stairs of the airplane. The air was full of the scent of orange blossom, mixed with sage and rosemary and thyme, traveling on the warmth of the Mediterranean breeze as it touched our hair. I stopped for a moment upon the stairs, to allow it to enter and refresh my soul. That night was to be the first journey of many that we were to take down the island of Rhodes to Lindos, for we eventually bought a house. Actually, two. One is in Lindos and the other was further down the island in Pefkos, Lindos, which became home away from home for many years. It was a place where we could relax and safely raise our children on holiday. We taught them how to swim and be free. Now, after nearly 40 years, we have become part of the community, growing old together. As one rounds the last corner just before you get to Lindos from Rhodes, the view still takes my breath away, especially at night. The village twinkles with streetlights through the orange trees, and the boats in the bay light up the harbour like Christmas. In the distance, you can hear the cicadas and the rustling of the leaves. Night flowering jasmine and orange and lemon trees create a floating fragrance. The stillness takes one into another reality of time. Storybooks are written upon such magical beauty, set off by the stars and the sky. The night's castle silhouette is revealed each night by the light of the rising orange moon. And there we were, in love, holding hands, held captive in a timeless moment. A villager and his trusty wheelbarrow sat waiting when we arrived in the square. He was there to take our bags to the house. He was short, his back hunched over from carrying too many heavy loads, his body wrinkled with age, but he still smiled, revealing the loss of his front teeth. Ella, Ella! Waving his arms, he motioned for us to follow him into the village through the cobble walkways. Our first summer, we stayed with the Floyd manager and his family, Steve and Linda O'Rourke, and their two children, Kate and Shayna. They had rented one of my favorite night houses owned and restored by Sandro and Patrizia Somari. Sandro was an Italian painter from Milan who worked closely with an Italian architect. Together they restored it from being a derelict donkey stable to its former glory as a knight's residence with an Italian flavor. Many of the older houses built centuries ago were for the knights. Sandro's was one of them. He had created such beauty, especially in his garden. Sandro's house had a traditional two-story stone wall which surrounded the property and gardens. That night, we entered in through a huge wooden door in the middle to find a wooden dinner table in the courtyard, all aglow with candles and a feast. Everyone was there that had arrived in town from England. Gosh, it was out of a fairy tale. My only difficulty that night were my platforms. All roads were narrow walkways on many inclines. Our escort, with our bags, was walking at a fair pace, so I stumbled on the cobblestones, holding onto the walls, fearing that I may twist my ankle. Needless to say, Lindos was quite an adjustment. I thought England was quite an adjustment for an American, but Greece was even more. Not only was the weather hot and dry and very sunny, but my modeling agency had said, don't get a tan. So I was often seen sitting under an umbrella in my broderie anglaise skirt and top, staying white. But it was so magical, very magical. Rick and Juliet and their two children, Gala and Jamie, had come and rented a different house. They didn't know we were all going to show up. I think they were hoping to have time out, but didn't happen. But I got very, very close with them. And I used to teach the little kids how to be a dolphin. And throughout the next 40, 45 years, it's something that I continue to do with my own children and with all of the little ones that come to Lindos that I meet. So, little dolphins, you're big dolphins now, and you've got your own little dolphins. I remember one morning, and this is jumping history a little bit. I was walking through the village early morning, just as the sun was coming up, because one of our babies wasn't wanting to sleep. So there I was walking through the village and came upon a group of women in a queue, coming up to a little door that is usually closed, and there it was, a butcher. They all closed ranks. They can't have a tourist know that there's meat in the village. After the war, it wasn't a really healthy, prosperous village like it is today. I mean, it's amazing. You can get lettuce and all kinds of frozen things and a lot of vegetables and special things, avocados. Goodness, the list is long. But in the first few years, we had to bring a lot of our own grains because I became a vegetarian, and there was a limited amount of those things at certain years. Anyway, here we are many years later, and as the villagers say, we're growing old together. And I'm very happy to have an extended family all the way over there in Greece. So, on to our next chapter. See you soon. Thank you. Bye.